Hello, everyone, and welcome to another story time brought to you by ABC Read. My name is Miss Seisha, and ABC Read is the name of the nonprofit organization that I'm the founder of and executive director. And our mission is to develop and nurture a culture of literacy in Black and underserved communities, y'all. That is what we do, and that's what I'm here to do today for you all. It might be evening. It might be morning, afternoon, but for me, it's later on in the afternoon. And bam, y'all see, from my old heads, y'all know what time it is, right? JD and the Great Barber Battle time. Written by Jay Dillard, illustrated by Akeem S. Roberts. Who's the best barber in town? Who the best barber in town, y'all? What's going on? All right, we about to find out because it's competition time. Y'all already know Henry Jr. versus JD. Who you with? Who y'all got? We on chapter 19. For my newbies, I appreciate you all subscribing. Thank you. Make sure you get caught up now. Okay, main character JD takes place in Meridian, Mississippi. And we are now at the meat and potatoes. Hence the title, Great Barber Battle. We're about to find out who's the best barber in Meridian, Mississippi. All right, chapter 19, y'all, the barber competition. Here we go. As worried as I felt on the inside, on the outside, I looked as clean as a star at his movie premiere. At least as clean as I could with my best church shirt and shoes. I brought a jar of candy for the audience and made sure that Jordan, with all of his gadgets, was able to play music and set up a microphone for Mr. and Mrs. Holliday. Hart and Son only had 2 barber chairs and 1 small bench for the people who were waiting. I got permission from my gym teacher to bring a bunch of folding chairs, but there still weren't enough seats for everyone. The only time I had performed in front of a crowd by myself was during the school Christmas play in 2nd grade when I played Joseph. I dropped the fake baby Jesus when I was handing the doll to the girl who played Mary, and everyone laughed. Being on stage in front of people was nothing like being on the football team when no one could even tell who you were. People gathered outside the barbershop with some pressing their noses against the glass. Jordan quickly hooked up his sound system so folks could hear the announcements outside. It felt like a tailgate party at Tuskegee University. My entire family sat in the front row like a line of ducks dressed in their Sunday finest. They were next to Henry Sr. and Henry Jr.'s wife and 2 little kids. I noticed all of my friends, especially Jessica sitting by her mom. She waved, flashing her bright blue fingernails, and walked up to me. "You'll crush it, JD, just like I did in football last game." Before she went back to her seat, she added, "And when my mom sees you cut hair, I know she'll let you cut my bangs." That's just what I needed to hear. I saw Justin fussing on my mom's lap and decided to go calm him. Vanessa was there too, and she had this weird look in her eyes. I couldn't tell if she was happy for me, jealous, or nervous. But then she grabbed my arm. "You got this, JD," she said. Next to her, Grandma and Granddad matched for the occasion, with Grandma in a powder blue church hat and Granddad in a powder blue tie. They both smiled at me. Everyone I cared about had come out to cheer me on. A photographer from the Meridian City Times took a photo of me and Henry Jr. for the newspaper. The flash was so bright, I felt dizzy. Just then, Mrs. Holliday's voice crackled over the speaker. "Welcome, everyone, to Meridian's first barber battle," Mrs. Holliday announced. Me and Henry Jr. got into our stations. "Give it up for our brave and talented contestants, Mr. Henry Hart Jr. and little Mr. J.D. Jones." Mrs. Holliday paused for applause. I tried to imagine that all the cheers were for me, just like Mom said. "Now, the competition is best 2 out of 3. My husband and I will serve as the professional judges, but everyone is allowed to participate by using the numbers underneath your seats. You can rate the haircuts from 1 to 5, 5 being the best, and 1, well, being not so good. She rolled up her sleeves. Mrs. Holliday reminded me of the gymnast Simone Biles in the nylon tracksuit she always wore to keep from getting dirty with hair supplies. Now give it up for our hair models. Let's hope they all go home happy. Xavier, Eddie, and this kid from church named Steve walked out. Steve's parents were strict, even stricter than my family. So he was not in football or any extracurricular activities. How was I going to cut all his hair? I did not know Henry Jr.'s models very well either. Maybe they were his relatives from another town over. 2 of them had small afros, and Mrs. Holliday's wild card model was another kid with a long, bushy afro. Mrs. Holliday mentioned that her models grew out their hair for the battle. Okay, let's begin, Mrs. Holliday said. Our styling tool of choice was a set of clippers with a guard, no shears. We'd have 30 minutes to complete each style before clippers down. My husband, Billy, or Mr. Holliday to all of you, will kick things off by pulling the first style out of the hat. Mr. Holliday, a short and burly man, walked over to the hat and pulled out a piece of paper. The first style is a fade. Our clippers buzzed on. I worked on Eddie's head and felt less nervous as I concentrated on the haircut. But I can sense that Henry Jr. was working faster than me. How many hundreds of basic fades had he cut over his lifetime? Clippers down, I heard Mrs. Holliday say. Out the side of my eye, I saw her whispering to Mr. Holliday. Henry Jr. had finished before me, and it looked pretty good. Mine was good too, but the back edge was a little unfinished. We must give this round to Mr. Henry Jr. What does the crowd think? When Mrs. Holliday asked the crowd to rate Henry Jr.'s fade, he got mostly 4s and 5s. I got mostly 4s. The only 5s were from my family. Miss Holliday pulled the next style out of the hat herself and addressed the crowd. Our next haircut is a pompadour. I heard the crowd shift in their seats. Not everybody seemed to know what that was, but I did. Celebrities like Miguel or Bruno Mars and Janelle Monáe had all tried their own versions of pompadours. Luckily, Xavier was up next in my chair. All I needed to do was add the right styling product and then edge up his sides. Henry Jr. was trying to straighten his model's hair, but he didn't finish in time to make the edges neat. The Hollidays whispered to each other again. We think the winner of this round is JD. This time the crowd gave me mostly 5s and 4s, and Henry Jr. got 3s, 2s, and even a couple of 1s. For this competition's last style, Mrs. Holliday said, could I please have Henry Sr., the longtime owner of this shop, come to the front to make the selection? Henry Sr. unfolded his long stick-like legs and reached his wiry hand into the upside-down baseball cap. High top fade, he yelled out. Don't know what in the world that is, but good luck, boys. Henry Sr. shuffled back to his chair. I knew exactly what a high top fade was. I wasn't so sure that Henry Jr. did. Either way, we were both cutting the hair of a new client for the first time. Henry Jr. calmly buzzed off the bushy ponytail of the kid in his chair. He was already ahead. My clippers buzzed as I shaved off Steve's ponytail, but as soon as his hair hit the floor, my clippers stopped working. I heard a few gasps from the crowd, and my mom covered her mouth with her hand. I walked over to my bag and whipped out my uncle's backup clippers. I'd never used them before, but if I wanted to win, I had to think back to what Mom said on our car ride. We Joneses never give up. The good thing about Steve having so much hair was that I could really do something extra special with my high top fade, like a slightly uneven look with one side higher. I stole a quick glance at Henry Jr. It looked like he was trying to copy me. Back on Steve's head, I was feeling pretty good about what I was doing. I focused on the haircut the way I did when I got sucked into my drawings. Even if I lost, I wanted to make sure I did a good job and everyone knew I could cut hair just as good as Henry Jr. That was important to me. Hey, y'all. Woo! Oh my gosh. This is pump time, pump season. Who y'all got? Y'all already know who I got. And I know y'all got them too. JD, JD, JD. Well, I hope you all enjoyed chapter 19. And I'm going to be getting ready to upload chapter 20 because we got to find out who the winner is, y'all. So make sure you all, again, like, subscribe, and share these videos. Give some great comments. And remember to please keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. I'm Miss Sasha. Peace.